Thank you very much, Comsec. Today is the continuation of this public hearing on resolution number 566, entitled Resolution Directing the Committee on Ways and Means to conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation on the rising incidence of illicit trade on excisable products, with the end in view of abating the proliferation of illicit trade by introducing remedial legislation as may be necessary, introduced by yours truly. And there are other two resolutions, PS Resolution 1224, entitled Resolution Directing the Appropriate Senate Committee to conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation on the proper and strict implementation of Republic Act number 11900, otherwise known as the Vaporized Nicotine and Non-Nicotine Products Regulation Act, and other relevant revenue measures following reports of persistent importation of illegal vapes and the non-payment of required taxes, introduced by Senator Raffy Tulfo. And lastly, PS Resolution 1243, entitled Resolution Directing the Appropriate Senate Committee to conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation on the foregone tax revenue as a result of smuggling and illicit trade of excisable products. Again, introduced by yours truly. And just to, since this is the third hearing, just to give everyone a recap, again, this is the Committee on Ways and Means, so we are concerned with the collection and revenue of our national government, especially pertaining to excisable products. And today, we'll be focusing once again on tobacco and heated tobacco and vapor products. So just to recap, on slide 2, this is the collection from tobacco, heated tobacco, and vapor products. And one of the reasons why we conducted this hearing is we have seen the decline of collection from our the decline in collection of sin taxes, particularly on tobacco, heated tobacco, and vapor products. So starting 2021, we've seen that gradually the revenues being collected has slowly declined. And we also noticed, and this came out during the last hearing on the next slide, that illicit trade is slowly going up starting 2019. And if you can see the red line, that is the illicit trade. The blue line is the volume, and the red line is the percentage compared to the total tobacco trade. So over the last 5 years, we have seen illicit trade has slowly going up in terms of volume and in terms of market share. And the offshoot of that as well is we have seen a gradual increase in the prevalence of smoking. And this is data coming from the DOST FNRI. And we've also seen that from 2021 to 2023, there was an increase in smoking prevalence, particularly to the young. But there's a big caveat to this. Even during the first two hearings, we cannot conclusively relate this to illicit trade. However, there is an increase in smoking prevalence. I think the bigger reason for this is also the penetration of heated tobacco and vapor products. So, but for now, we cannot conclusively connect this to the illicit trade phenomenon. But nevertheless, we want to put that on record. So we have discussed extensively a lot of the details during the first two hearings concerning illicit trade. But today we want to focus on enforcement. I think this is one of the most important aspects in combating illicit trade. And when I say enforcement, this is starting from the raids that being conducted, of course, the intelligence, and then the raids, then eventually the prosecution, and eventually also the conviction. What we want to see is also conviction and holding people to account, and punishing people who are depriving government of much needed revenues for various programs and various projects, especially for our poor constituents. Last hearing, we also, let me just put on the screen, we also proposed some recommendations to curb illicit trade, and we will be writing the different government agencies, particularly the DOF, BIR, and BOC, on these recommendations, and we are urging the different enforcement agencies to take these recommendations seriously and update the committee later on the implementation of these resolutions. So, and lastly, before I call on the various enforcement agencies, particularly the BOC and the BIR, let me just put on the screen here. I was actually doing some research in the internet, looking for best practices on combating illicit trade, particularly tobacco. And thanks to Google Gemini, the AI came out with a summary on one of the most important aspects of combating illicit trade. And it said, combating illicit trade, the certainty of punishment or likelihood of being caught and punished is a more effective deterrent than the severity of the punishment. This means focusing on increasing the chances of apprehension and prosecution is crucial for discouraging criminal activity. I think sa mga kapulisan natin dito, this is a principle in being used in criminology, I believe. I think this is also what they call the deterrent theory being taught in criminology. Tama ba ako sa mga kapulisan natin? But what this is saying is enforcement and prosecution is a more effective way of combating illicit trade rather than the severity of the punishment. So in other words, the certainty of being caught, the certainty of being convicted is very important in order to deter illicit trade. So this is what we want to focus today. And I would like to thank our enforcement agencies. I think during the last few hearings, you reported that there are an increase in raids, increase in apprehensions. However, we want to analyze whether those apprehensions led to convictions. No? So with that, we will call on our enforcement agencies to report to this committee their efforts in combating illicit trade, particularly on the enforcement side, all the way to the prosecution, all the way to conviction side. And let's be honest to ourselves, if there are gaps in the system, there are gaps in the procedures, let's use this venue to express those gaps or to put those gaps on record. The aim of this committee is to come up with recommendations and even legislative solutions so that we can plug those gaps and have an effective approach to combating illicit trade. So with that, let me call on the BRR to brief us on their efforts on enforcement efforts on combating illicit trade. And we call on ACIR James Roldan or anyone from the BRR who wants to brief us on their enforcement efforts.
Good morning,
we are
sir.
also joined by HREA Galera. So anyone from the BRR can do the briefing.
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Senator. I'll give the mic to Sir Don for the report on the enforcement activities, and I can talk about, sir, yung mga prosecution of the cases, sir.
All right, thank you. Go ahead, HREA Galera.
Okay. For the BIR, we have prepared the enforcements we've made for the years 2023 to 2025. In 2023, we've conducted 563 raids for cigarettes, for vapor products 14, or a total of 577. In 2024, we've conducted 30 for cigarettes and 998 for vapor products, or a total of 1,028. In 2025, this has not been updated yet. We've conducted one raid for cigarette and vapor products 30, a total of 31. For the 3-year period, we have conducted 1,636 raids for both cigarette and vapor products. For 2023, we've seized 2,975,319 packs of cigarettes and vapor products of 4,652 units. For 2024, we've seized 4,473,521 packs for cigarettes, and for vapor products, 754,506 units. For 2025, for cigarettes, we have seized 167,765 packs, and for vapor products, 12,878. The estimated liabilities on these raids are as follows. For 2023, cigarettes alone, the estimated tax liabilities inclusive of penalties is 821,942,442. For vapor products, it's 5,418,649, or a total of 2.8 billion. For 2024, cigarettes alone is 14.9 billion. For vapor products, 613 million, or a total of 15.5 billion. For 2025, vapor products 46.8 million, a total of 46.8 million. These are what we've conducted for the years 2023 to 2025, Your Honor.
Go ahead, ACIR Roldan.
Yes, sir. Good morning, sir. So for the period 2014 to 2025, the BIR has filed with the DOJ head office, National Prosecution Service, 35 cases of tax evasion with an estimated tax liability of 17.3 billion pesos. Of those 35 cases, 17 cases have been instituted in court with a estimated tax liability of 13.9 billion pesos. We also have some initial data because our revenue regions are also filing tax evasion cases on illicit tobacco. We have initial data of 159 from the regional offices, 159 cases amounting to 11.6 billion pesos, Your Honor. So that is our overview on the tax evasion cases that have been filed.
Mr. Roldan, can you repeat that again? Just to I have a different record, but can you
Yes.
just
Yes, sir.
repeat the number of cases filed?
Yes, Your Honor. For the national office, it's 35 cases filed with the Department of Justice amounting to 17.3 billion pesos. And then those that have been filed in court, 17 cases amounting to 13.9 billion pesos. Then our initial data from the revenue regions, 159 cases filed by our revenue regions amounting to 11.6 billion pesos. We will be cleaning up, sir, the data from the revenue regions and submit a detailed, correct number within the week, Your Honor.
So for revenue regions, it's 159 cases
Yes, Your Honor.
amounting to 15
11.6 billion, sir.
11.6 billion. And then the others you met, other than the revenue regions, what is that? Central
That is
office?
from the head office.
Head office.
Yes, sir.
How many is head office?
35 cases filed with the Department of Justice amounting to 17.3 billion pesos.
17.3 billion pesos. Okay.
Yes, Your Honor.
So if you add everything, that's 194 cases. Is that correct? From the regions and the head office?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Right. I'll throw questions later on. We'll go to the BOC so that we'll put everyone on the same plane.
Good morning, Your Honor. Your Honor, during the previous meetings, I think we submitted already to this committee summary of our enforcement effort. May I request that it be flashed on screen? We'll just add on to it, Your Honor,
Okay.
for 2025.
Request the Secretariat to flash the data. That was the submission of the BOC.
Pending the data being flashed, Your Honor, may we just report that for cigarettes and tobacco products, for 2018 to 2025, the total charges that we filed before the Department of Justice is 64 cases. 3 for 2018 with a dutiable value of 12,433,42.43 and an estimated summary of duties and taxes amounting to 29.1 million. In 2019, we also filed 3 cases before the Department of Justice amounting to a dutiable value of goods of illicit cigarettes of 161.4 million pesos with an estimated duties of 55.3 million pesos. In 2020, from 3, it went up to 19 cases with an estimated dutiable value of 610.8 million pesos and duties and taxes worth 878.2 million pesos. In 2021, 16 cases, Your Honor, with a dutiable value of 426.7 million and an estimated duty of 543 million pesos. In 2022, 10 cases with a dutiable value of 115.4 million and estimated duties and taxes of 279 million pesos. In 2023, we were able to file only 1 case with an estimated value of 3.1 million pesos and a dutiable and estimated duties and taxes of 58.1 million pesos. In 2024, 11 cases were filed before the Department of Justice with a dutiable value amounting to 925.2 million pesos and an estimated duties and taxes of 1.1 billion pesos. For 2025, Your Honor, we already have one case filed before the Department of Justice with an estimated dutiable value of 605.5 million pesos and duties and taxes summarized as estimated at 966.8 million pesos. Overall, Your Honor, from 2018 to 2025, 64 cases were filed by the Bureau of Customs with a dutiable value amounting to 2.8 billion pesos and duties and taxes estimated at 3.9 billion pesos.
So in total, how many cases were filed?
64, Your Honor.
64 cases. I'll start with the BOC. So the cases were filed, 64 cases were filed to the DOJ. Tama?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
And how many prospered to being a case filed in court?
Our data shows that about 5, Your Honor. 5 cases are pending in our courts.
What happened to the 59 that were filed with the DOJ?
13, Your Honor, are still undergoing preliminary investigation. 40 are for automatic review. The rule of the Department of Justice, Your Honor, is that when a case has been resolved by the National Prosecution Service and it involves smuggling, it automatically is elevated to the Secretary of Justice for automatic review, Your Honor. So 40 of which is already elevated for automatic review. One is pending filing in our courts. So once it's filed, the number of filed cases in the courts would be elevated to 6. One has been dismissed at the DOJ level. One has been dismissed at the court level. So resulting to 1 acquittal, and we already have 2 convictions, Your Honor. So 2 of the 64 already attained finality of judgment with 2 convictions.
So out of the cases filed in court, out of the 5, 2 were convicted.
Yes, Your Honor.
And then the 3 were dismissed?
Not yet, Your Honor.
Still
Only
pending.
yes, they're still pending in court, Your Honor.
Okay. And when you say automatic review, how come the 59 that are still with DOJ, and this is a span of from 2018 to 2024, is still with the DOJ? Typically, pag malakas ang kaso, fina-file na kaagad yan, di ba?
Yes, sir. Yes, Your Honor. We'll have to defer to the Department of Justice, but our cases go through a rigorous process before we file it, and usually, Your Honor, if it's a smuggling case, all documentations and all circumstances are usually geared towards a strong case for conviction.
Well, let me ask the DOJ, represented by DOJ dito. Mr. SASP, Mr. Charlie Guhit.
Good morning.
Let's
Your Honor.
focus on the BOC first. No? Actually, I'm looking at the data. both the BIR and the BOC, when they file cases, they go through the DOJ, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
And then let's focus on the BOC first, because I see that a lot of these cases are still pending with the DOJ. So, in other words, in my point of view, and I know there might be some technicality on the BOC itself, how come 59 cases are lodged with the BOC, with the DOJ, and still remains with the DOJ right now?
Okay, Your Honor. For clarity of the committee, Your Honor, and for everybody who's around, with respect to cases filed by the Bureau of Customs, Your Honor, we have a process of automatic review. That means, Your Honor, that if the case is filed before the DOJ for purposes of preliminary investigation is dismissed on the prosecution level, Your Honor, then that dismissal will be automatically reviewed by the Office of the Secretary of Justice. Our office, Your Honor, from the prosecution will transmit to the Office of the Secretary the entire records of the preliminary investigation of cases which have been dismissed on our level, Your Honor. And that, in that sense, Your Honor, the Bureau of Customs need not file a petition for review of the dismissed cases. So that would be the case in case of dismissal of the customs cases filed before the Department of Justice main office, Your Honor.
So, in other words, those 40 cases, the ones on the screen, are all dismissed at the prosecution level.
That's correct, Your Honor.
So, mahina yung kaso.
I would say, Your Honor, that for those cases, the evidence would be insufficient to file information in court, Your Honor. Right now, Your Honor, for the information of everybody, we have a new policy in the Department of Justice. That is the policy of under Department Circular number 20, wherein the DOJ is closely working with the law enforcement agencies to build up cases. We call that, Your Honor, case build up process before the Department of Justice, so that we will have a more stronger case when we file in court. In the case of the Bureau of Customs, it would not be proper for this representation, Your Honor, to outrightly say that the case filed by the BOC is weak, because this representation is not the one who reviewed the case or handled the preliminary investigation of cases, Your Honor. But it would appear, Your Honor, that there is some sort of issue with respect to the evidence presented during the preliminary investigation stage, Your Honor.
Correct. Again, we're not going to adjudicate whether the cases are strong or not, but let's take it at face value. Earlier, the BOC reported, and I commend the BOC for the raids that you are conducting. I know conducting raids is a very difficult task, no? From surveillance to intelligence gathering to risk in life or risk of life. That is a very complicated process. However, we want to make sure that enforcement and conviction is achieved. So at the same time, of course. So that's why I commend the BOC and the BIR for doing their job in doing the raids and enforcing the laws. But we want to see conviction in this case. At the end of the day, it's the conviction that matters. So in the manifestation of the BOC earlier, 1,296 raids were conducted between 2018 to 2024, but those raids yielded to only 5 court decisions, no? And the actual filing in the actual cases that were filed were only, tama ba, Attorney Marunilla, 69 cases. So out of the 1,296 seizures, 96 cases were actually filed. 69 cases were actually filed. I think in your data is 64, no? But
64, Your Honor.
64 cases that were filed, of which 40 is for automatic review under the DOJ. So, in other words, what happened to the 1,200 seizures that happened? Kasi, do you get my point? There were 1,296 cases or raids that were conducted, of which 69 cases were filed. No, so what happened to the balance of 1,200 something?
Your Honor, the 64 cases might have been consolidated, meaning in multiple raids, our investigation might have yielded that there were only a certain number of people that were responsible. But we will look into that particular data, Your Honor. We will submit to this committee. It's the investigation division that handles it. Just to also to complement, Your Honor, the statement of the Department of Justice. That is indeed true that we're working with the Department of Justice to beef up some of the cases that we filed because, Your Honor, the Department of Justice also in I don't know when, but I'm pretty sure during this administration or late at a very late stage during the previous administration, changed their policy in the in the conduct of preliminary investigation. Before the quantum of evidence that was required was probable cause, but I think they're now their policy now is certainty of conviction instead of just mere probable cause. And certainty of conviction assumes a more stringent build-up of cases and preparation of documentary and testimonial evidence, Your Honor. That's why there were several instances that seminars and exchange of information were conducted between the Bureau of Customs and the Department of Justice. More particularly to be able to beef up the cases filed by the Bureau that are still pending before the Department of Justice to ensure that it complies with the standard now being implemented by the DOJ, which is not finding not merely a probable cause for filing of cases, but a certainty of conviction in terms of the pieces of evidence presented before enforcement agencies.
I'll flash the numbers that you dictated earlier so that everyone will be on the same boat.
Mr. Chair, can
Yes, go ahead.
I
Mr.
hope this question can help. I know. My question is, when goods, there are two kinds of smuggling. Outright, then you have the Coast Guard. No? And technical smuggling. There are 4 types of technical. The violation of the Customs and Tariff Code, under declaration, misdeclaration, and under value. So, I am sure that these are the things, the technical smuggling are the ones passing custom. Because if it is outright, it is on the shoreline na yan, Coast Guard na. There is no outright smuggling that will pass through customs? Definitely. So it is all technical. So how come that they can get out of custom going to the warehouses na hindi na detect ng mga nag-i-examine if it is under the 4 categories of technical smuggling?
Attorney,
Your Honor, during the investigation, and then that this can be verified through the operations conducted by the Bureau of Customs. At the moment, when our apprehensions increased, majority of our apprehensions, Your Honor, were operations together with the Philippine Coast Guard and the Philippine Navy, and the large volumes of apprehensions of illicit cigarettes were actually outright smuggling, meaning smuggling at the high seas. These were all apprehended. And we do not deny, Your Honor, that we also have apprehensions of technical smuggling, but only misdeclaration, Your Honor. Meaning our apprehensions at the port level, they misdeclared it for some other goods, but actually what is contained are cigarettes.
So you don't have undervaluation. Misdeclaration is it is either classification or the kind of imports. No? Let's say one time we sent back not your time, no, we sent back a container van, Your Honor, from Ross Boulevard because we can open it with Pasji. I was with Pasji that time, representing the industry. So we sent it back to customs. That was during the time of Umali. So nung binigay namin doon, because we cannot open, it was open. It is a reefer van, refrigerated van. Ang declaration, tiningnan namin, assorted hand tools. And yet it passed through, I'm talking previous, it passed through custom that the goods declared are assorted hand tools loaded in a reefer van. Nagtawa na nga sa Senate nung hearing noon eh. But my point lang is, siguro, tingnan natin yung mga na-file ng kaso, Your Honor. Kung ito ba'y technical smuggling? Because pag technical, talaga may violation, makikita mo na eh. Either undervaluation, misdeclaration, underdeclaration, or misclassification. You cannot be mistaken by classifying glass, di ba? Makikita na kagad eh. But since you were saying that, Your Honor, that these are taken, these are mostly outright, I was thinking that the outright smuggling mukhang nawala na eh. Kasi akala ko technical na ngayon lahat. That was my statement in my technical classification of different types of smuggling.
Go ahead, attorney. You may respond.
Your Honor, and former Congressman Nograles may correct me on this, but majority of, from our experience and from the data, majority of the apprehensions now, Your Honor, are outright smuggling. In fact, it happens to a particular place in our country, which is the southern part, and our apprehensions has been, our operations has been concentrated on that because a large bulk of our apprehensions actually come from the southern part of the Philippines, and the operation there, Your Honor, are usually outright smuggling, meaning unregistered, unannounced vessels carrying bulk shipments of illicit cigarettes trying to enter the country through our back door.
Go ahead.
Question now is, you know, ukay-ukay, used clothing is prohibited from being imported in commercial quantity under Republic Act 4653. But you can look around, look all over the Philippines, lahat ng ukay-ukay yan. So, paano nakapasok yung outright also? Pero kung if these are, the evidence can be shown, lahat na ng outlets, no? All over the Philippines. My question is, walang apprehension. So who should be liable? The dereliction of duty. Sino ang dapat maghuli nun? Lahat na, nakalat. And remember, the law says it is for health reason and dignity of the nation. I don't think that you have a value for dignity of the nation. You cannot, it's a priceless item. And I'm not referring to you. I'm referring now to the entire operations. No? Bakit walang nahuhuli? Bakit walang... Mayroon bang mga diferensya ang mata natin? Hindi nakikita yun. I don't know. Your Honor.
Actually, Mr. Ransa, may nahuhuli. Wala lang nakukulong. That's the problem. That's why I'll show you the data that we have called. The BOC, based on the reports, have conducted 1,296 seizures, of which 64 cases were filed. No? The numbers might vary because of timing issues. Of that 46, 14 were filed and pending with the Office of the Prosecutor. Only 8 were filed before the courts and 2 decided. So in other words, if you look at the universe of 1,200, only less than 1% of those seizures actually make it as a decision and also conviction. No? So it's not the number of seizures, but the number of convictions, especially favorable convictions. No? So, with all due respect to the BOC, kaya hindi natin maaalis sa isip natin na minsan itong mga seizures, pangpakitang tao na lang. No? With all due respect, if there are 1,296 seizures, there might be more than 10,000 who are allowed to go out. No? But those 10,000 can only be prevented if we have favorable conviction. Kung may nakukulong no? At mayroong napaparusahan. But in this case, only less than, it's actually, in the actual numbers, 0.15% actually are convicted. No? And that's where my question comes in. What happened to the 1,232? No? Because yung 64 lang na file, yung natirang 1,200, ano ba nangyari na doon? The answer might be consolidated. But how come those 1,200 seizures never even prospered to be a case? What happened to that? Can we get an answer, Attorney Maronilla?
Your Honor, will
Kasi masarap sabihin ni 1,296 seizures eh. Lahat kami masaya. Pero yung actual case na file, ang layo, no? 64 lang versus 1,296. Kahit na i-consolidate natin, I don't think it will be reduced to 64 cases. So what happened? Are there seizures that were eventually just left hanging without cases being filed?
Your Honor, we'll look into that data and we'll submit to this honorable committee. But there are monitoring systems in place in the Bureau of Customs. So I'm pretty sure that there are valid explanations as to the numbers being flashed and correlating it to the number of cases that were filed. We'll also look into the number of the respondents for this 64 cases. That might explain some of the disparity. There are admittedly cases where we do pre-lodgement seizure because we cannot wait for someone to actually claim the items anymore, Your Honor. Because even if we do that, we do some entrapment operations. There are no other people claiming some of the shipments. In fact, we've had cases filed where the ones who were named as consignee who never filed any entry and never claimed the shipment are on the defense that they actually don't know that that particular shipment was shipped to them. And there are technicalities to that in the rules on logistics. That's why, Your Honor, right now we're very thankful for the revision of the Anti-Agricultural Smuggling Act. Tobacco being an agricultural product. We now file cases on our apprehensions on illicit tobacco products under that particular law, where there are more stringent rules pertaining to responsibilities of persons or personalities, even if they don't do any positive act. Wherein in the previous laws, there are qualifying acts that are needed to be done in order for some personalities to be able to be technically included in the investigation and in cases that are going to be filed.
Talk about that later on. That's an important piece. That's an important law that recently was enacted, and that's meant to improve, hopefully, the conviction rate, no, because the law made it simpler. I want to ask the DOJ again. Mr. Guhit, in your analysis, how come 40 cases? We'll go back to the slide of the BOC earlier. 40 cases lost in at the prosecution level. No, there's already a big question mark. How come 1,200 cases were not filed? But also a big question mark is how come 40 cases out of the 65 cases were lost at the prosecution level. So based on your analysis, what happened there, and how can we improve the prosecution of these cases at the prosecution level?
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. With respect to the issue of why 40 cases were dismissed out of the 64 cases filed by the Bureau of Customs before the Department of Justice main office, I can only surmise, Your Honor, that the evidence for those 40 cases dismissed before the prosecution level, the evidence were insufficient to justify the filing of information in court, Your Honor. But the good thing about the dismissal, Your Honor, and the policy of the Department of Justice for auto review, the Office of the Secretary of Justice can check again the resolution of the prosecution for the reason of why the cases were dismissed at the prosecution level, Your Honor. So in the event that the Secretary of Justice found that there is reversible error on the part of the prosecution, the Secretary of Justice may direct the prosecution to file information in court and reverse the resolution of the prosecutors, Your Honor. So that is what going to happen in the event the Secretary of Justice reverse the dismissal of the prosecution, Your Honor.
May I suggest, Your Honor?
Yes, go ahead.
I understand that there are lawyers in customs. They are also preparing the case, no? Hand in hand with, and then they file it with the DOJ. Tama? Why don't you put together the two so that walang mali, you will expect what you want to expect from customs. If you give them the parameters, then they will follow, and then you can file.
That's my next question. Well, I have two questions, two follow-up questions. Were there instances wherein the Secretary of Justice reversed on this case, BOC cases, reversed the decision of the prosecutor?
With respect to that issue, Your Honor, this representation would gladly ask for a data of how many cases were reversed by the Office of the Secretary of Justice in terms of the auto-rev cases filed before its office, Your Honor, so that we will have an accurate data with respect to the reversal of the resolution of the Office of the Prosecutor, Your
But
Honor.
do you know, were there instances in the past where...
I believe so, yes, Your Honor. There were instances.
Kasi ang laki ng out of the 69, 40 were lost. No, that's more than 50, almost 60%.
Yes, it would appear, Your Honor, that is what the data is representing right now before us, Your Honor. But again, I can only surmise that on that level of investigation of the prosecutor, Your Honor, the handling prosecutor, including those who recommend for the approval of the resolution, found the insufficiency of evidence to file information in court. And to add, Your Honor, to address also the issue of our good representative, Your Honor, with respect to the cases filed by the Bureau of Customs, again, I believe I already mentioned earlier that we have a new policy before the Department of Justice, that is the policy under Department Circular number 20, wherein we are already closely working together with the law enforcement agency. And that includes the Bureau of Customs, not only the PNP, the NBI, in terms of law enforcement, so that we can build up better cases before filing in court. And in that sense, Your Honor, we can avoid dismissal on the prosecution level when cases are filed before our office. With respect to investigation after case build-up, that's another process, Your Honor, because normally cases handled by the case build-up prosecutor together with the investigating personnel of the law enforcement agencies are referred to another prosecutor who will handle the preliminary investigation to have a fresh eyes in terms of reviewing the evidence subject of case build-up, Your Honor.
My next question, in line with the comment of Mr. Aranza, so how do we improve the conviction rate what concrete actions have you taken with the BOC? Let's focus on the BOC first and the DOJ in order to improve the prosecution of these cases and eventually conviction of these cases. What are the proactive steps that both departments have been doing? Because in my opinion, in the case of BOC, parang dead on arrival na eh. Pahuli nga pero less than 1% na lang yung napapanalo natin. No? So kung ako yung smuggler, pagtatawanan tayo talaga. No? Dahil walang makukulong eh. No? And we all know that these cigarettes, the prices of these cigarettes, the cost of the cigarette is 7 times less than the retail value. So in other words, you need to raid 7 times more in order malugi yung smuggler. Because kung isa o dalawang raid lang, kita pa rin siya. Because yung 5 ini-smuggle niya, profit pa rin yan sa kanya because ang kanyang margin is 7 times more. So even though we raid 1, 2, 3, but we don't address the conviction rate, the raids are dead on arrival, in other words. So may I know what concrete steps is the Department of Justice and also the BOC has undertaken in order to improve this very low conviction rates?
Your Honor, with respect to concrete actions taken by the Department of Justice, I would say that by issuing the policy of Department Circular number 20, directing the prosecutors to have a proactive role in terms of investigation, Your Honor, that is one concrete action that the department would say that would help in getting a conviction insofar as cases filed before the Department of Justice. And another thing, Your Honor, is I would like to echo the statement of our good representative from the Bureau of Customs with respect to the trainings being conducted by both offices, Your Honor, so that the investigators of the BOC and the investigators of the Department of Justice will have the same level of understanding with respect to the cases filed before the office. And in case, Your Honor, the cases are filed before the court, the prosecutors who are handling the case is always closely coordinating with the representative of the Bureau of Customs with respect to submission of the documents and other evidence that would be needed in court. We conduct a case conference prior to the presentation of our witnesses before the court, Your Honor, so that would at least ensure that the prosecution would efficiently present the witness before the court. Of course, Your Honor, at the end of the day, the duty of the prosecutor is to ensure that all the evidence submitted by the Bureau of Customs are presented during the trial, and the court would decide whether those evidence submitted by the prosecution would be enough to secure a conviction, Your Honor. Insofar at that aspect, Your Honor, for purposes of conviction, the prosecution would rely on the evaluation of evidence by the court, Your Honor.
You operationalize that mechanism through a memorandum circular or a joint circular?
Yes, Your Honor, because we have the Department Circular number 20. And right now, it's being implemented, Your Honor. Insofar as case conferences with the Bureau of Customs or other law enforcement agency, that is process being followed and observed by the prosecutors when cases are already in court, Your Honor.
I suggest to both the BOC and the DOJ to take a look at this matter. I'm looking at your Department Order 20. Seems to me that it's focused on, a lot of it are focused on heinous crimes, but not smuggling.
Your Honor, just to add, I would like to add that it is already amended, and
Okay.
several cases were included, like anti-money laundering cases, Bureau of Customs cases, and BIR cases.
Okay, good. That's good. That's good to hear. And this is very important, no? And I remember when the time when I was a mayor, alam niyo yung mga PNP mahilig magpakitang gilas yan eh. But when I was reviewing the the conviction rate also of drug cases in our city in Valenzuela, I noticed that the conviction rate is also very low. In the same problem, a lot of our enforcement agencies, especially the rank and file, are not very well versed in evidence collecting, in procedures, as well as the law itself. No, so and there were a lot of lapses, a lot of issues in terms of procedures, and of course, I don't know if that's done willfully or it's purely ignorance. But nevertheless, the low conviction rate is a cause of concern for us, no, especially in smuggling, because no matter what we do in terms of law, no, amend the law, come up with stricter guidelines, if we don't convict, if we don't put people in jail or don't penalize them civilly, then nothing's gonna happen. So just give us an update, both on the part of BOC and DOJ on those things that you mentioned, on the capacity building, on coordination. Just give us an update later on, and a timetable on how you are implementing this joint capacity building.
For the DOJ, Your Honor, will do, and we'll update this committee, Your Honor. Thank you.
We'll go to the BIR at this time, and I'll flash on the screen again. This is based on the numbers that you mentioned, ACR Roldan. Again, the numbers might be different because of timing issues, but we collated the information based on your submission. So you mentioned earlier that again, no, timing issues lang to. But based on the submissions that you gave us, there were about 1,600 seizures, of which ganun rin, 194 cases were filed with the DOJ, and 14 cases filed with the courts, of which one was decided by the court. No? So if you look at the percentage from the seizures, that's 0.06%. No? The same, less than 1% compared to the seizures. So my same question, what happened to out of the 1,600 plus seizures, how come only 194 were filed with the DOJ? My numbers might be different because of timing issues, but just correct me if the numbers are significantly different. But can you please answer how come out of the 1,636, only 194 were filed?
Well, sir, as far as the enforcement and advocacy service is concerned, our job, sir, is to build up a case and file it with the prosecutor when we receive these cases. I believe, sir, that Mr. Chair, that the discrepancy can be explained by some of the seizures, some of the seizures, yung mga nahuli, Mr. Chair, nagbayad sila eventually. That's why hindi na umabot sa enforcement para magbuo ng kaso. Baka si Sir Don can elaborate on that.
Can you explain, out of this 1,600, how many ang nagbayad? And because the discrepancy is so big, almost 1,400 cases, 1,400 seizures did not prosper to cases. No?
Mr. Chair, karamihan kasi ng etong sa 1,636 yung mga vape shops, maliliit na vape shops. There was a time also in 2023 when we've conducted nationwide tax mapping on all yung mga sari-sari stores, mga grocery stores. Yun yung madaming nabisita, kaya umabot ng 1,636. And many of those establishments have paid their obligations, kaya hindi rin sila na-file ng kaso. We will furnish this committee, Mr. Chair, with the numbers. What we have here is the collection only from these establishments, and we've collected around 30 million, Mr. Chair.
30 million or 30 billion?
30 million, Mr. Chair. Ito ho kasi yung mga maliliit na establishments, sari-sari store, vape shops.
Granted that mga maliliit yan, let's focus on the 194. Those are the cases filed with the DOJ, correct? How many of those cases also are now with the automatic review process? I would assume may mga ganyan rin.
Mr. Chair, unlike the BOC, we don't have the arrangement of automatic review. But if there is a case dismissed by the prosecutor, hindi lang sir automatic. We have to file a petition for review with the Secretary of Justice. But for those cases that have been dismissed, they are all under motion for reconsideration, Your Honor, with the prosecutor. I'm
How
not
many are
aware.
those? Out of the 194 cases.
Sir, I have the data for the national office, yung of the 35. We have 18, Your Honor, that are pending with the Department of Justice. Yung sa regional offices, Mr. Chair, we'll just clean up the data and submit to the committee.
But it's accurate to say, well, based on your information, but it's accurate to say that only one has been decided by the courts. This is a time frame of what's the time?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
2023 to 24.
One conviction, that's correct, Mr. Chair.
Out of the 194 cases?
Mr. Chair, yes, we only secured one conviction.
It's the same. We have the same problem with the BOC. Dead on arrival na rin itong mga seizures. Only 0.06% of those cases of the seizures prospered to an actual case and secured conviction. So, again, no, hindi natin maalis sa isipan ng mga kababayan natin na itong mga seizures and raids are all for show. No, because ultimately what we want is to secure conviction, but that's not happening. No, that's why sometimes I cannot escape my mind that these raids are just being showed to the public, but those who are escaping the raids and who are not paying their taxes are much bigger compared to what is actually being shown. No? Because what we want is to improve conviction, to hold people to account. So in the same manner, and it starts with the DOJ. Do you have any concrete steps with the DOJ in improving your conviction rate? Because even as you mentioned earlier, there are 18 cases now under review or under appeal with the DOJ, no? So, and this is only for the central office. I would assume it's much greater if you include the regional office, no?
So, Mr. Chair, just to add, we have that one conviction will pertain to a case filed by the head office. The data from the regional offices, that's part of our submission. We will submit, sir, the results on the cases that were filed by the revenue regions. Now, with respect to the steps, well, for one, personally, I could say that we have good lines of communication with the Secretary of Justice. He's aware of that these cases are a priority of our agency. We haven't had a chance to have a capacity building workshop like the Bureau of Customs, but that is already being discussed. So hopefully in the next couple of months we can hold one, or definitely within the year, Mr. Chair. So Mr. Chair, if I could only add, because they've had some recent resolutions on the cases that we have filed, and I have observed one challenge that we are facing at the BIR that can be tied down to the provision of the law on the penal provision in the tax code. This is in section 263, which punishes the unlawful possession of and removal of articles that the excise tax has not been paid. We have a catch-all provision at the end of this section 263 that mere possession of the articles is punishable. But that catch-all will also refer you back, says here, shall be punishable under this section. So it throws you back to the first part of this provision, which gives a distinction. Iba yung penalty pagka imported, iba yung penalty pagka locally manufactured. So the challenge, Mr. Chair, is our operatives on the ground when they seize these articles, it is almost impossible to make a determination then and there that it is imported or locally manufactured. And so we lack the evidence for that allegation. So in short, Mr. Chair, hindi namin magamit itong catch-all provision. Sana dun sa pag mere possession, then may specific penalties already. That doesn't, it's regardless whether it's imported or locally manufactured. So long as they have possession and that the taxes have not been paid on these articles, then there are corresponding penalties already, Mr. Chair.
Well, we welcome suggestions to amend the law. The Committee on Ways and Means is continuously amending the NIRC, as you know. We can include those revisions in the succeeding amendments of the NIRC. But again, let me urge the BOC, the BIR, and the DOJ to work together to improve the prosecution of this case. Kasi sa prosecution level pa lang, talo na tayo kaagad eh. Wala pang korte yun. Pag umabot sa korte, lalo tayong pahiya. So, and I don't want to diminish your efforts in conducting the raids and conducting all of these seizure activities, and also put negative impressions on these raids being conducted. So let me again strongly urge the departments to work together to operationalize your capacity building, to coordinate thoroughly, and submit to the committee concrete steps on how to capacitate the two enforcement agencies with the guidance of the DOJ. Again, when I was a mayor, malaking bagay talaga ang guidance ng prosecution eh, because it starts with them eh. No? So if we can already capacitate our enforcement agencies, then pag-file ng cases natin, malakas na kaagad. So submit to the committee concrete steps because this will form part of our recommendations. And I hope hindi papasok dito sa tenga, sa kabila lalabas. I hope after this hearing, may action talaga. No? Because like I said, in the theory in my opening statement, the certainty of conviction is the best deterrent. Without that, then everything's futile. So I have more questions I have more questions to you, but we'll ask some of our resource persons their thoughts on this. But before that, we'll recognize former Congressman Nograles.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Allow me to briefly submit and react to what our resource person from the BOC mentioned on the challenges on determining whether an item is imported or locally manufactured, and in the determination of such. May I suggest respectfully, Mr. Chair, that there are existing mechanisms to determine, and it actually lies with the National Tobacco Administration. And this specific mechanism is asking the National Tobacco Administration, whether the articles are registered with them or not registered with them, and they can actually give certification or a negative certification, meaning tobacco being a highly, if not the most highly regulated commodity here in our country. The National Tobacco Administration has records of every step of legitimate tobacco importation and manufacturing. And that means that if they need to determine, like the BOC or the BIR, if they need to determine whether the tobacco or the items are registered with the NTA, and if it's not registered with the NTA, it can be legally assumed that it is smuggled. And that negative certification may be able to help determine whether the seized items or commodities are smuggled or locally manufactured. I submit, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, former Congressman Nograles. And to our friends from the BIR, please take note of that suggestion. I think that suggestion is quite noteworthy, and please take note of that. We'll call on the other enforcement agencies. We're joined by the NBI. Any comments from our friends from the NBI? S.A. Perdido,
Good morning, Mr.
represented by
Chair.
Mr. Perdido.
Mr. Chair, so far as the NBI is concerned, most of our operations in dealing with the illegal tobacco trade are in form of assistance to either the Bureau of Customs or the Bureau of Internal Revenue. Now there are sporadic operations in the provinces, the regions, based on intelligence reports, but there are very few to mention. Like for example, for 2024, we only have 7 cases of investigations conducted on illegal tobacco trade. 5 of which turned out to be positive, while the remaining 2 turned out negative. That's all, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, based on what you've heard today, Mr. Perdido, what do you suggest for these enforcement agencies? Because the National Bureau of Investigation is obviously an agency that is well versed in information gathering, investigation, all the way to filing of cases. But what do you suggest for these agencies to improve their information gathering and also all the way to filing of cases?
Mr. Chair, I think we are already on the right side, especially with regards to the department order that was issued by the Department of Justice as to the involvement of the prosecutors in the building up phase of the case. So I think we just have to maybe improve on that. In the meantime, until such other remedies can be come up with, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for that. We're also joined by our friends from the PCG, the Philippine Coast Guard, represented by LCDR Gamas of the PCG.
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Any comments to our discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chair. The Philippine Coast Guard is mandated to assist in the enforcement of laws on tariff and customs. We have surveillance authority also in relation to smuggling. My comment, Mr. Chair, is that in terms of prosecution, most of the apprehensions done by which the Philippine Coast Guard is involved, we turn it over to the BOC, Mr. Chair. My suggestion is that if there are apprehensions that the Philippine Coast Guard is involved, maybe, Mr. Chair, there's a strong partnership or collaboration between PCG and BOC in filing the case and kasi may mga lawyers din ng Philippine Coast Guard, Mr. Chair, mas maganda na magtulungan din po in terms of the filing and the prosecution of the cases, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Gamas, I heard earlier that nagiging uso na ngayon yung smuggling from the high seas, yung outright smuggling of cigarettes, especially from coming from Mindanao, coming from the back door in particular.
Based on our records, Mr. Chair, ang pinakamataas na rate on smuggling is sa South, Mr. Chair.
Okay, which particular area in the south? The
Based
back
on
door,
our,
the Zamboanga,
we have Zamboanga and
the Basulta area.
Davao, Mr. Chair, and based on the 2022 report or data, BARM also, Mr. Chair.
And then how is it, can you describe to us, based on your experience, how is this being smuggled from the southern port of our southern area of our country? How is it, what's the modus? Can you describe to us? And can you also report to us how many have you intercepted in the past years?
For the data, Mr. Chair, of the numbers of reports in 2022, we have 168 reports of smuggled items.
These are cigarettes,
Um,
particular,
not all goods, Mr. Chair,
all
but
goods.
mostly cigarettes, Mr.
Mostly
Chair.
cigarettes.
In fact, in 2024, 69% of the reported smuggled products, cigarettes po, Mr. Chair. In 2023, we have 294 reports. And in first quarter to third quarter of 2024, we have 190, Mr. Chair. We will submit the updated report, Mr. Chair.
For 2024, how many?
For first quarter to third quarter, 190.
190.
But we will submit the updated report for the
Okay.
fourth quarter and the first quarter of 2025.
And you said that the majority of this 190 are cigarettes.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
And how is it being, can you describe to us, how is it being smuggled? From where to where? And then, saan na-detect nyo, saan nakikita nyo yung palaging pinapasukan nitong smuggled cigarettes?
We have the representative of the intelligence force, Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead, sir. Can you?
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Insofar as the data that we have collected from the southern part of our region, Mr. Chair, we received that these cigarettes, these tobacco products came from Indonesia and Malaysia, Mr. Chair, then distributed to the mainly to the BARM areas, Mr. Chairman.
So saan siya pumapasok? Saan siya, are they entering the legitimate ports, or are there illegitimate ports that are point of entries? Based on
Mr. Chair,
based on your analysis,
yes, it's not entering our ports, Mr. Chair. Insofar as the southern part of our area, Mr. Chairman, mainly because they use very particular this vessel Jungkong, Mr. Chair. So shoreline po siya. So kaya mahirap yung kasi this area, this backdoor area is highly surveilled by Philippine Coast Guard, Philippine Navy, and the Bureau of Customs, including the PNP Maritime. But they can find ways how to deviate from the routine patrol, maritime patrols of our enforcement agencies, mainly because mabilis po kasi po yung Jungkong, Mr. Chair, and they usually avoid those areas yung hindi napapasok ng mga maritime vessels po natin, Mr. Chair.
And when you seize these items, do you also file cases? Do you investigate and file cases? or seize lang ng items?
Right now, Mr. Chairman, the practice of the Philippine Coast Guard is to turn over the seized items to the Bureau of Customs, Mr. Chair.
So that's the process, and then the Bureau of Customs will file the appropriate charges.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
And in this case, who are the persons who will be filed charges against? Yung yung ba yung mga nagda-drive ng mga Jongkong, yung mga tao doon, or are they the ones liable?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Obviously,
The person on board the vessels, Mr. Chair.
And based on your information, nafa-file ba natin ng cases against them?
We have data, Mr. Chair, that these cases in the southern part of the region, they are filed in courts by of course, the Bureau of Customs, and the part of the Philippine Coast Guard as will be as witness to that particular case filed in courts, Mr. Chair.
Yeah. May I ask the BOC, what's the status of those cases that the Coast Guard have referred to you? Meron bang chance na napapanalo yung mga ganong cases?
Yes, Your Honor. In fact, some of the ones that were filed already in courts, Your Honor, were cases filed together with the Philippine Coast Guard, Your Honor. They serve as our witnesses, and some of the apprehending documents that were turned over to us are also part of our pieces of evidence. But echoing what the Philippine Coast Guard has just said, Your Honor, in these cases, we file cases against usually the captain of the small vessel piloting it, and the crew, unless during investigation they're able to identify or cooperate with us and identify the real owners of these items. But most of the time, Your Honor, they're also blinded. In the course of the investigation, most of the time these people do not know the personalities behind it. They only know usually a name, which is, in our investigation, which is not even a real one, to whom they are going to deliver it at the shorelines, Your Honor. So what happens is that they're the ones suffering the consequences of the illicit trade that was apprehended.
You conduct further investigation on who are the real owners of these illicit cigarettes?
There are follow-up investigations being conducted, Your Honor. But in the meantime, to avoid the lapse of prescriptive periods, we file cases against those already found in flagrante delicto, or the ones in the vessels already.
Well, that's important to deter even the ship owners to carry illicit products, or illicit, in this case, tobacco. That's also very important. But as we all know, there are personalities behind these cigarettes. And I was looking at your intelligence and confidential funds. In 2024, you have 81 million. In 2025, you have 82 million. So, in other words, you have capability to further gather intelligence on who are the real perpetrators of this illicit trade. Have you conducted that? I won't ask who.
Yes,
this,
sir.
we'll probably do an executive session to find out who. But what I want to know is, you have budget to do intelligence gathering, because you have confidential funds. Are you doing intelligence gathering based on the apprehensions made by the PCG?
Yes, Your Honor. In fact, there are personalities already being investigated by our intelligence group and the enforcement group. And some of the apprehensions, together with the Philippine Coast Guard and the Philippine Navy, has led to some of the raids that we've conducted in the warehouses. So that particular link are slowly being established. And slowly we're going to be able to complete the circle and confirm some of the personalities that are already in the list of our intelligence group.
All right. later on, through an executive session, we'll request for the names of those persons behind all of this smuggling, especially happening in the South.
We will do that, Your Honor.
Thank you. Thank you for that. We'll jump to our private sector resource persons. So we'll start off with Mr. Blake Clinton D of the Associated Anglo-American Tobacco Corporation. Any comments on this issue of getting a conviction and filing cases?
Well, sir, we are in agreement with your opening statement that yes, the conviction is enforcement and conviction is the most vital way to deter these incidences of illicit trade. And we've reiterated this stand multiple times in our previous position papers, and that as a small business here in the Philippines, we're being melted because the government has created the lure for illicit trade. And if there is no enforcement to close these gaps, the low penalties, low enforcement, high profit, that only attracts more criminals to engage in this. And as we've stated before, prior to the imposition of the sin taxes, we were doing a respectable 40,000 cases a month. Now we're down to 4,500 if we're lucky these days. So, sir, I agree with you, sir, and I support your push, sir, that we must improve enforcement and conviction, because otherwise, sir, the local industry will pretty much, we're good as dead. It's just a matter of time at this point, sir. And again, we urge you, sir, please take action. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And that's why we're here to plug the gaps and to also call on our enforcement agencies to better coordinate and to, again, make sure that we get the conviction rather than just end at the raids and seizures. We'll call on Mr. Aranza. I know you made some comments earlier, sir, but maybe you have additional comments.
Sir, the first hearing, I mentioned that a certain colonel reported to us when we had a meeting in Pampanga that most cigarettes na doon sa rebel camps, nandun lahat mga cigarettes, no? And I surmise, I said last hearing, first hearing, that this is a security matter for our country. Because di mahal na, malaki ang kita, magaan pa. So that's why I was hoping that something has been done by the authorities before during our meeting. But on the other hand, there are also delay in the hearings, and I will cite an example, Your Honor. For instance, we had a case, not our case, because only custom can file under our laws, di ba? So we were able to discover that the case, this is a case of Kingston Trading in Manila, no? They came in with about some 5,000 metric tons of steel bar. And the custom filed a case. Hindi naman kasalanan ng custom. I think it's the delay, no? Delay, postponement, and to a point that a personnel from custom is no longer with customs. So yun mga delay. And you know, Your Honor, the case took 18 years before Supreme Court affirmed the decision of the Court of Tax Appeal. So I presume that there are delays, postponement, to a point na nawawala na yung mga ibang witnesses. Delay. You delay and you win the case, no? Kung wala nang mag-witness. And then another thing that we will, since we are talking of how to enforce, no, we are talking also of, I was mentioning before that the custom is the first line of defense, but we also have the Bureau of Product Standards, the DNR, and for toxic matters, and of course the Food and Drug. I think we have to review, Your Honor, the process done by this group. No, normally, not normally, but in some cases, the goods arrive And since there are no place for customs for storage, it is they ask for a guarantee, no, or a ban. It is brought to the warehouse of the consignee, and then when the time comes that they will examine, naibenta na. So my point is, I suggested before that you charge them yung guarantee nila should be equal to the cost of the goods. Kasi pag equal yan, hindi nila ibibenta lahat because you will forfeit the same amount. I suggested that long time ago to GMA, no, and it was agreed by custom during the time of Bumali, but I never heard about it later on. No, so the Bureau of Product Standard, Your Honor, is something that we should, and the Bureau of Food and Drug, ito ho ang malakas na deterrent. Kasi no, even the World Trade cannot question standards. The World Trade, its tariff can be questioned, no? Yung sasabihin niya, it says tariff, but standard is something that is perfect for to prevent smuggling to our country. Put the standard high, especially today, that U.S. increased their tariff, Your Honor. We in the industry, we feel that there will be a tremendous increase, especially on the steel products coming from China, because the tariff has been increased to so high. So we have to be prepared. And I think it is also time, I wrote it in my column, it is also time now to review the building codes. At the rate earthquakes are happening, is becoming stronger and stronger in intensity. So we have to review, Your Honor, because the building code was done, I think the law was passed 1777. So baka naman pwede na nating reviewin ito, Your Honor, because dadami yan, and we have to adjust also. And then yung mga kaso, yung mapaprevent din natin, yung you lack space, di ba, yung sinabi sa amin noon eh. So I suggested, sabi ko, if you lack space for storage, you bring it to the consignee, and the consignee sells it without even checking, no? We were able to raid 2 or 3 months ago with the DTI worth 100 million of battery, car battery sa Binondo area, no? It's the problem of MBI, you know, at saka yung battery is where to place the batteries, no? Confiscated batteries. Ito yung walang ICC. So, again, nakikita lang yan if somebody, kami, halimbawa, nakakuha kami ng mga information, we relay to the to MBI. Pero dapat siguro ito, reviewin din natin, paano ba talaga tinitingnan nila ang mga standards ng product, because this is a big volume also, and we should be very careful now because things are happening like in Myanmar and so on. Sipin mo. And I was scared when the PBOX directors said that if that intensity of earthquake happened in the Philippines, we will be having a death of about 50,000. He said it the other day. So my point, Your Honor, is these are just issues that I've observed, but we will be presenting this to you in a more detailed form, Your Honor, including lahat na sa mga implementation, seizure, and so on and so on. We'll do that.
Thank you. Thank
In a
you.
week's time.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Ranza. We'll call on Indigo Distribution, Mr. Wally Chamsi.
Good morning, Your Honor. We pretty much agree with yung mga opening statements mo stating that enforcement and conviction was probably the greatest deterrent dito sa business namin. I can speak particularly for the vape industry where we've had very spectacular and dramatic cases, no? There have been a Senate hearing, if you recall, a few months back regarding people who have been caught with billions in their warehouse, no? And up to now, there's still no conviction in these cases. I'm sure the moment that we start convicting big cases like these that are very dramatic, then you'll see a very dramatic decrease also in instance of smuggling as well. I think we have all the right laws in places. I think the government agencies that are acting are doing quite well in terms of regulating the industry. But no matter how well they run the industry, if the smuggling is still going to continue and if people are not getting prosecuted for it, then wala rin eh. Sayang naman yung trabaho nila eh. So, yun lang po.
We'll go into that particular case that you mentioned. I think you're pertaining to the Flava Corporation. Is that yeah, that's one of the biggest raids that was conducted by our enforcement agencies. We'll go to details of some of the high-profile cases that we have collected. We'll go on to Mr. Jericho Nograles.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The PTI submitted to the Honorable Committee a 3-page position paper, which I'll summarize lang in one paragraph to be to shorten our proceedings. But before that, I'd like to confirm what Asco Maronilla said earlier when he referred about the incidents of in Mindanao and how it enters. I also like to confirm, based on our intelligence, what our Coast Guard said on the incidents as well. I'll reiterate as well that interagency coordination is a big impact in enforcement, and I would actually go into detail there later. I go back to the 3-page submission to your committee, and I quote, we strongly urge the government to revisit the policy of automatic annual tax indexation, the mechanical escalation of excise taxes each year without regard to actual market and enforcement conditions has already resulted in declining government revenues and increased smoking prevalence due to the shift of consumers toward untaxed, unregulated products. Indexation, while administratively simple, is contributing to a policy environment where legitimate businesses are increasingly displaced by smugglers and counterfeiters. Without intervention and optimization of fiscal policy, the national average is expected to reach more than 19% by the end of 2025. The consequences of inaction are clear: shrinking government revenues, reduced effectiveness of public health programs, and increasing dominance of criminal syndicates in the excisable product market. That's the summary of the 3-page submission that we have submitted to the Honorable Committee, Mr. Chair. And if I may have 2 more minutes.
Go ahead.
What I mentioned earlier about coordinated efforts, we'd like to submit to the committee as well, listening to the initial statements of our public servants. And with the indulgence of my chairman in the Interagency Committee on Tobacco, this is a homework that we have. I'm a member of the IAC Tobacco. And this is a homework that we have for our next meeting, how to improve coordination. So I'll give you my advance notes. I'll give the committee my advance notes. For the Bureau of Customs to submit regular reports on seizures, tax assessments, and enforcement actions involving illicit tobacco products. And importantly, identify and classify major seizures as those involving, number 1, excise tax losses exceeding 10 million pesos. Number 2, repeat violations by the same entity. So, alam mo, criminal na talaga. Number 3, indicators of organized or transnational smuggling operations. And for major seizures, and I guess we will consider major seizures of 10 million pesos and above in relation to the Anti-Agricultural Economic Sabotage Act. that the BOC initiate mandatory referral to the AMLC to trigger asset tracing, freezing, and forfeiture procedures. And also, as normal, immediately refer all cases to the DOJ for prosecution. For the Department of Justice, to submit reports on the progress of prosecutions related to illicit tobacco. Ensure that the offenses under RA 11981 are treated as non-bailable, and the penalties are pursued to the MLC on cases involving illicit trade to ensure asset recovery proceedings are supported with admissible evidence. On the National Tobacco Administration, for domestically manufactured illicit tobacco flagged by enforcement agencies like the BIR and the BOC, that they will verify the source of the unmanufactured tobacco. As mentioned earlier, they have all the records on what is on every step of the way from importation or even from land production, farm production, domestic farm production, all the way to finished products and exportation. And they can verify the source. And if the source is unknown or unregistered, to issue a negative certification declaring the materials as smuggled. And once certified as smuggled, immediately refer the matter to the DOJ for prosecution in the proper courts. And again, initiate coordination with the AMLC for asset tracing and forfeiture action. So, and NTA also to submit reports and on the national on the negative certifications, and if they have intelligence on the matter, illicit manufacturing trends and data correlations with legal leaf production. So the legitimate tobacco industry, Mr. Chair, is very, very organized in the sense that we know, we count down to the kilo, down to half a kilo, what is legitimate, and we get taxed. Even things na nasisira, may issues pa yan na hanging. So every kilo is really monitored. Now on the DTI, to notify retailers in areas flagged for illicit tobacco activity and remind them of relevant penalties under 9211, 11981, the graphic health warning law. Very simple. It's just market education, which really falls under the DTI. And also the BIR regulations on tax stamps. The DTI can actually help the BIR in educating the retailers. The list of authorized legal tobacco products, regulations on minimum retail prices, which I believe the BIR already has. On minimum retail prices, and integrate anti-illicit trade awareness in consumer and retailer education programs. Submit reports, again, very important, assumingly to the IAC tobacco or to the Ways and Means. Same report lang naman yan, copy furnish. On the Department of Health, issue public health warnings in areas where illicit tobacco is detected, emphasizing that these unregulated products pose greater health risks, if you're okay with that. I mean, there are health risks in tobacco, we admit that, but there are greater health risks for unregulated tobacco. And of course, incorporate the issue of illicit trade into the national tobacco control campaigns. Include communication materials, health promotion, and research outputs, typical of the DOH and not as expected. For the DOST, FNRI specifically, in their presentations in the last two hearings, they said, and even in the House, they said that it's not, they did not disaggregate legal and illicit. So, especially in the incidents of smoking in the youth, maybe it would, if you can, I don't know, you're the experts, if you can, disaggregate it. So there's a better perspective on policymakers on what's driven towards the youth. No, is it the illicit, or do they have access to legitimate? it's a major policy tool if the FNRI is able to do this disaggregation, because these indicators in the national surveys will really help the committee. And of course, the submission of incidence reports and trends is very much welcome. These are a few of my notes. This is still my draft to the IACT tobacco. You have the first knock on my notes for this one. So, Mr. Chair, we submit. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Noglares, and we would greatly appreciate if we can get a copy of that. Some of the reports that you mentioned are important to this committee, and we'll take note of that and request from the agencies to give us those reports.
Gladly, Mr. Chair.
We'll call on AER, Action for Economic Reforms, Ms. Santillan, Daffodil Santillan. Any comments on the discussion?
Good day, Mr. Chair. Would like to thank the Honorable Committee for having us once again. We'd like to reiterate our position. We previously submitted that illicit trade can be mitigated, and this is through effective enforcement and regulation, with the primary motivation being its public health benefits. That's reducing smoking and ensuring funding for public health initiatives. Last Feb, we submitted our position paper, and the proposed draft of the bill, which reflects the recommendations of the Honorable Chair of the Committee and our proposals to strengthen the anti-illicit tobacco trade measures in line with the version passed by the House of Representatives, which is House Bill number 11286. If I may know, among the salient features of the bill related to our discussions today is number one, to enhance interagency cooperation and LGU's involvement. So we propose that an interagency anti-illicit trade council be created. This is in line again with the recommendation of this honorable committee to strengthen coordination with the local government units on the law enforcement efforts. The council may in its discretion recommend to the president the establishment of an interagency or in task force or enforcement group. And we also propose in the committee that the council shall have the discretion to deputize local government units subject to the standards and guidelines set forth by the provisions of the measure and the council. Earlier, it was also mentioned that there's outright smuggling going on in the south, coming from countries like Indonesia and Malaysia. With this view, we propose that the law enforcement efforts must be coordinated and concerted at our regional counterparts. And part of the bill is we propose that the powers and functions of the council shall also include the power to forge international agreements, arrangements, and mechanisms to enable coordination and collective action against international illicit trade of covered products which affects the Philippines. And in this committee and previous forums, such proposal is projected to cost the government 27.5 billion worth of foregone tax revenue from 2026 to 2030. As pointed out also by health advocates, this will result to hundreds of thousands of new smokers, especially among the Filipino youth. So this is a revenue erosion proposal on the part of the government and anti-health measure that is detrimental to the Filipino people, especially the youth. Again, we emphasize that the key to addressing illicit tobacco trade is better tax administration and strengthened enforcement. Thank you, Mr. Chair. We will be submitting an updated position paper, including the recommendations we have from this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you for that. We'll call on Ms. Attorney Fatima Lapera of Health Justice.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for having us today. Health Justice has always maintained, in the reports and data presented today by our enforcement agencies, bolster our position that illicit trade is fundamentally an enforcement problem, not a tax problem. The solution is therefore not to weaken our excise taxes, but to strengthen monitoring, border control, and regulatory coordination, as suggested by the other resource persons here today. The continued proliferation of illegal vapes and non-compliance with RA 11900 also highlights weak enforcement, and we are very much concerned about the access to vapes, which puts minors and non-smokers at risks and which creates new generations of nicotine users. We also want to be clear products away from our most vulnerable populations. And the cost of foregone revenue actually pales in comparison to the human and financial burden of tobacco-related diseases. We support the inquiries as they will lead to stronger enforcement and better protection of public health. And we are hopeful that the Senate will pursue practical and responsive solutions to address illicit trade that will not compromise our already existing life-saving policies. Excise taxes on tobacco are essential to protecting public health, reducing consumption, and discouraging initiation, particularly among the youth. And rolling back taxes or pausing increases will not stop smuggling, but it will increase tobacco consumption and health harms across population groups. We urge the Senate to uphold the integrity of our excise tax system, which has been globally recognized as a cornerstone of tobacco control. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Call on Miss Javier, and sorry, Mr. Anton Javier of Southeast Asia Tobacco Control Alliance. Here.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I'd like to preface my intervention by saying that I represent the Southeast Asia Tobacco Control Alliance. We are a multi-sectoral, non-governmental alliance promoting health and saving lives by assisting ASEAN countries in implementing the WHO FCTC. The WHO FCTC is a tobacco control treaty that was ratified by the Senate in 2005. And based on a ruling of the Supreme Court in July 2021, it is part of the law of the land. So this treaty contains provisions on illicit trade, also on tobacco tax administration, Mr. Chair. So we'd like to start by saying that the efforts of the Bureau of Internal Revenue, the Bureau of Customs, and other agencies of government are commendable in principle. We support stronger tax administration in the broadest sense of the term. When properly implemented, effective tobacco excise tax policy, as Attorney Laperal had said, could have tremendous public health impact because of the proven effects on especially price-sensitive groups like the youth, the poor, and those who are disadvantaged in other ways, especially the elderly, who are more sensitive to the changing prices of tobacco products. Now, much of the discussions this morning, however, had revolved around catching peddlers of illicit cigarettes and electronic smoking devices not registered with the Philippine government. This is important, of course, but I'd like to dedicate this short intervention to share other measures that could also be adopted in order to improve tax administration. The focus on litigation and enforcement action could possibly be an expensive and time-consuming approach to the issue of illicit cigarettes. It's like, well, if I'm going to put an analogy in medicine, it's like focusing too much on treatment, but not enough on health promotion. So it's like the diseases just come up, and it's like trying to spot like a very pesky fly, right? One thing that had struck a chord with me in the discussions this morning was that the higher standard, certainty of conviction, is now currently being applied before undertaking preliminary investigation for persons and businesses engaging in the illicit trade of tobacco. I think this further highlights that this could be a very difficult and laborious process for government, which would no matter how high the penalties are, no matter how strict the policies are, if this is the standard that is currently being applied, it will really be very difficult to prosecute and bring to justice these individuals and businesses who are doing a lot of harm for public health. Now, there are many steps that could be taken in order to reduce the burden on the judicial and the enforcement systems. The first thing that we see is the track and trace system. So the implementation of tracking and tracing systems, especially ones that are compliant with a standard called EPSIS, can skew the odds in favor of government agencies. If you have a tracking and tracing system, interorganizational data exchange is real time, and it is much easier to identify illicit tobacco products and prosecute violators. There would be reduced reliance on bureaucratic processes, reliance on certifications from government agencies on whether tobacco product XYZ is legitimate or not. And the real-time nature of the system in itself could be a deterrent to illicit trade in tobacco. Now, this has other implications because this system that is being used to track and trace tobacco products is also being used for other goods and services. Now, FOSTRAC, the open source system compliant with EPSIS, is the de facto system for tracking and tracing regulated goods. For example, petrochemicals, pharmaceuticals, frozen food products, healthcare services, digital assets and services, and various traded commodities, Honorable Chair. So if we do this part of implementing, if you do I do understand that, adopting new standards could be a laborious process, but if we do this, the impact is wide ranging and could overall improve tax administration, not just for tobacco products. Another thing, Honorable Chair, is that this, of course, means that you have to have a licensing and registration system that could keep up with a wide variety of products that are out there in the market. So you don't just have cigarettes, but you also have electronic nicotine delivery systems, heated tobacco products, which are all changing with multiple variations every year. And in order to have a licensing and registration system that could catch up with something like that, you need a system that is similar to what the Philippine FDA implements for cosmetics. Now, cosmetics are also a rapidly evolving industry, and if you have a licensing and registration system that can catch up with that, then that is a benchmark for a licensing and registration system that could also be applied for tobacco products. Furthermore, the Coast Guard earlier had said that they discussed about their enforcement activities in the Philippine South, how certain areas are hotspots in the country, right? But in previous hearings, they've also flagged that the lack of a vessel monitoring system is a big problem. Now, I understand that we have increased the budget for the Coast Guard already, and these are all welcome developments for preventing illicit trade. But the thing is, if we don't have a vessel monitoring system, tobacco products are they're very easy to conceal. You can have large volumes of product in vessels that are not that are small enough or to be ignored, or if they're not being tracked properly, then you really are going to have a porous border that would be prone to illicit trade in tobacco, especially in the Philippine South. So the previous calls of we support the previous calls of the Philippine Coast Guard to pilot at least the development of a vessel monitoring system, or to implement a global a system of vessel monitoring that is compliant with global standards, Honorable Chair. We believe that taking these steps could decrease the administrative burden for implementing regulations that protect public health, and it would bring back the ability of our tobacco tax laws to bring in the required amount of revenue and to continue saving lives in the interest of public health. Thank you very much.
Do you know which countries have implemented a successful track and trace system?
Okay, one thing that I know of, Ethiopia has undertaken this initiative. Now, for reference, Ethiopia has 1/3 of the GDP of per capita. So if Ethiopia can do it, then the question is, why can't we?
Wala bang malapit-lapit para makita na layo ng...
Well, I use that as a reference, Honorable Chair, because there are many different systems, Honorable Chair.
Like for example, in Southeast Asia, Thailand, Malaysia, have they used this track and trace system?
Now, I'll get
the reason why I ask, because we have porous borders. When these smuggled cigarettes come in, obviously you cannot implement track and trace anymore. They just flood the market. No? So the track and trace system is designed for those who are being manufactured here and being imported legally. But how about the ones that the Coast Guard is apprehending through the back door, which is purely outright smuggled cigarettes? That's the reason why I'm asking. Are there any countries in Southeast Asia, considering that Southeast Asia is very porous, this implementing track and trace?
Okay, Honorable Chair, there's multiple questions to this, so I'll just try to answer the first and easier one. So we can give you like an entire list of the we can give you guide what the policies of the ASEAN countries, and we'll submit it to the committee, Honorable Chair. But on the issue of tracking and tracing only working for the registered products, it's also important to have track and trace in order for you to quickly identify illicit products. The customs had earlier noted that, of course, the standard is now actually very high for, you know, if we're going to be prosecuting individuals or businesses that engage in illicit trade. And one of the things that could reduce the administrative burden is the quick identification of illicit cigarettes. Now, so that you don't have to, so that you remove the burden of having to confirm everything with the National Tobacco Administration to see if it's fake or not, and reduce the entire effort when it comes to case building. This is an important development. This is an important policy that could be undertaken. And if I recall, this policy is already currently being discussed in House Bill number 11286, Honorable Chair.
Thank you. Thank you for that. We call on Ms. Imelda Mateo of Philippine College of Physicians. Any comment? She here? No more na? Okay. We'll go back to some of the cases. Let me just flash this. Some of the cases. We just had we just randomly reviewed some of the cases, particularly the newer ones. And let me just flash this on the screen. For example, CTA criminal case number 0-0150. There, yan. So in this case, People versus C, and this case was actually dismissed. And the reason for the dismissal, warrantless search was illegal. Hence, the boxes of cigarettes seized are inadmissible and evidence for fruits of the poisonous tree. And another one is also, these are cases filed by the BIR. The other one is CTA criminal case number 0-935, People versus GB Gem Cigarettes Corporation. And this one was acquitted because the search and seizure of cigarette raw materials, tobacco products is illegal for lack of search warrant and lack of valid warrantless arrest. Hence, the items seized are inadmissible for being fruits of poisonous tree. Further, there is failure to prove guilt beyond reasonable doubt. So I won't go into the details of this case with the BIR, but my impression of this, these are technical issues that led to the dismissal and even acquittal of cases. Hindi pa ito merits of the case. No? These are just technical issues. And again, nagkaroon ng seizure, nagkaroon ng operation, but it lost because of technicality. So I would like to ask the BIR, why are we losing because of technicalities? Dapat before the operation and before the seizure, planchado na ito eh. Diba? The evidence is strong. We're very confident that it will prosper. But when the case was filed, we lost because of technicalities. No, and this is only for the first two is for the BIR. No, the next two is for the BOC. But basically, all of these are technicalities. No, so may I ask the BIR, how come we're operating, we're conducting raids and seizures, and then we fail in the technicalities? Not on the merits, hindi pa ito merits.
Your Honor, I think with respect to two of these cases would refer to the lack of a warrant. No, I'll just start, Mr. Chair, that these two cases are actually still pending in courts, and we are actually we have a strong position that we don't require, the BIR is not required to have a warrant for seizing articles that where the excise tax has not been paid, and that is established in the tax code itself. So we have a strong position against the rulings of the courts in these two cases. These two cases are unique in the fact that they are asking for a warrant when the law is clear for that we don't need one. Dito sa other two cases, Your Honor, Mr. Chair.
Hey, Mr. Roldan, I won't go into the details. So my point of the matter here is, in the process of preparing for the case, what is the process before we do all the seizures, all the raids, and to assure ourselves that the case will not be lost due to technical reasons, but the merits itself will stand on its own? That's my point. And these are just one. Maraming cases to eh. No? I just showed an example. We just went through it randomly based on the most recent. But what we saw is we are losing on technical grounds, not on the merits. So what preparation is the BIR doing in order to avoid losses due to technicalities? I would assume that you have a battery of lawyers to make sure that before the implementation of seizures, matibay na yung kaso natin, no? And that's my point, no? Because these are reported as seizures, but when you look into the details and look into the details of the case, you will see that we lost, no, due to technical grounds, no. So I just want to understand the process, and how do we avoid such a decision that is based on technicalities?
Mr. Chair, the Enforcement and Advocacy Service, we work closely with the revenuers, those who are actually involved in the seizure of the goods, because of course they will be the ones to execute the certifications, the affidavits, and they will also become the witnesses in our case. So before we file the cases, there is discussions, of course, with the operatives, and these discussions will result in the evidence. No, so in short, Mr. Chair, the evidence is put together in close coordination with our operations people. Before we file the case, of course, it goes through a review to determine whether it is complete. And Mr. Chair, when we file the case, we feel that it is already complete. But as far as yeah, we still encounter these kinds of decisions. But again, we have a policy of appealing these cases or not just giving up on these cases. So these cases are all still pending with the courts.
I was looking at your budget, no, and let me just flash on the slide, slide 30, that the budget, no, Bureau of BIR, sorry. Ayan. Yan. Slide 30. I think the title's wrong, but that's BIR. So we saw, I was looking at your budget and you have 237 million pesos for, it's called Policies on Tax Fraud Investigations and Intelligence Operation. And included in that budget is nationwide enforcement operations of illicit trade of cigarettes, vapes, and other excisable articles. So in other words, you have budgets to improve intelligence operations, to improve enforcement operations on illicit products. So in other words, you have a budget to improve the winnability of your cases. Although admittedly, if you look at this compared to the entire BIR budget, it's only 1%. No, I think this is something that we can improve later on, no, vis-a-vis the entire budget of the BIR. But my question is, despite this budget of 230 million, how come we are still losing based on technicalities?
Well, Mr. Chair, as far as the Enforcement and Advocacy Service and the budget, we actually, the only budget that is allocated for our service is mostly for personal services. Yung budget siguro, sir, for the tax fraud is for the operation side. But Mr. Chair, I can assure you that us at the enforcement, we work closely with our operations people in putting together the cases, because our cases are just as good as what is our operations people can put together also. We have mga recent learnings in the resolutions issued by the Department of Justice that I think we will be addressing also. I think there's a need to, one is the capacity building, and two, maybe we will revisit some of our internal regulations to help. And I believe there could be some enhancements on our side in terms of regulation, so that we will have stronger cases. At least we can hurdle the DOJ side, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, from what I understand, this budget includes nationwide enforcement operations on illicit trade of cigarettes. So in other words, this budget is being used for your operation to enforce and to also gather information and intelligence. Hopefully, those information and intelligence will bolster your cases against these individuals. No, my point is, we have budget, but we're still losing based on technical grounds. That's the point I'm trying to make. Is it a question of do we still increase your budget to improve your winnability? Admittedly, it's only 1% of your total budget, no? So it's not significant, to be honest about it. But is it a function of budget? Because that's also another improvement or intervention that we can make here in the legislature. That's the point I'm trying to make. Because if I just look this on as it is right now, may pera naman. So bakit pa tayo natatalo on technical grounds? That's the point. So just submit to us. I think you should consult your team and the BIR team. What I'm trying to drive at is we can fight to improve your budget, but you have to guarantee to us that you also will have higher conviction rates. That's the point I'm trying to make. Because if we increase your budget, we will demand for higher conviction rates. No more losing based on technical grounds. So that's the point I'm trying to make.
All right, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you for that. In the same token, with the BOC, we also saw actually a sizable budget. You also have the same budget for surveillance and prevention of smuggling, which is which is much more than the BIR. It's about 838 million pesos. About 21% of your budget, 1/4 of your budget goes to fighting smuggling. Of course, the budget of the GOSOM is much smaller than the BIR, no? But on a proportional basis, it's 21% of your budget. So the same question: how do we get? Is this a function of budget? That if we increase your budget, can we also get the same expectation of winning the cases? Although this one is quite big already, no? This is 4 times the budget of the BIR. So, but nevertheless, what we want is to improve our conviction rate.
Your Honor, the budget of the BOC is higher than the BIR because unlike the BIR, Your Honor, the BOC is an enforcement agency. We do have our own police force, which is the Enforcement and Security Service, which is the Customs Police, and we do also have our own intelligence unit, which is the Customs Intelligence and Investigation Service. Yes, Your Honor, we believe this is significant, but we've been requesting some increases to upgrade some of our capabilities and facilities in terms of enforcement. More particularly, some of the items being used by our customs police in terms of surveillance, enforcement in the high seas, so that we won't be as dependent to the Coast Guard and the Philippine Navy in terms of guarding our borders for purposes of border protection relating to illicit trade of goods. More so, there are also components of this that are geared towards training our enforcement officers in terms of evidence handling, capability in the raids that they actually conduct, so that when coordination with our legal service is already done, there won't be too much issues in terms of preparing and filing for cases. For now, Your Honor, every raid or service of letter of authority that we do, there's already the team that is composed of the one that's going to conduct it. A lawyer from our legal service already joins. This is to make sure that proper evidence handling is observed, and that technicalities on the handling of the entire operation won't be used against us when we file cases.
Just submit to us your recommendation, because a legislative intervention that we can make here is to increase the budget, but with the assurance that prosecution all the way to conviction will improve. I believe that this also includes training, the surveillance and prevention of smuggling, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yeah, it includes training. So now that we have agreed that one of the most important aspects of securing victory is training as well as coordination, then we can increase the budget and allocate it to capacity building and training. If that will help, then just let us know and submit to us a list, a very detailed list on how the increase in budget will secure victory for the cases that you have filed.
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you, and we will do that.
Because part of our recommendation is also legislative intervention. So just give us those details. We also have other government agencies with us today. We'll call on the DTI. Any comments on this particular topic?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Valdez.
Yes, Mr. Chair, we have put up a reporting channel and reporting email or reports channel. We are receiving reports on illicit smuggling of vape products. In fact, 2 weeks ago, we received a report and was able to operate at NAIA together with the BOC, and we were able to stop the entry of a number of vapor products coming in. Today, there's also an operation at NAIA, and I still have to receive the final report there, Mr. Chair. We also have in our website the list of allowed brands of vape products. Currently, there are only 12 brands allowed. It's there in our website. So if we see a product that's not in the list, that's 100% illicit, Mr. Chair. We have filed also formal charges with suspensions of vape products as beginning September of last year. Although prior to that, there have been 352 formal charges within the department. But since September last year, we filed 32 formal charges against particular manufacturers, importers, and vape brands. And these formal charges were together, we issued suspensions as well. And although we do not have currently we don't have the proper way to measure the effect of the suspensions, but based on our reports, there's been a palpable reduction of open trade of illicit vape products. So nag-underground na po yung mga majority of the brands that are not in that do not have PS licenses. To date, Mr. Chair, we have taken down 4,047,279 online posts or pages. This is together with the cooperation of our online platforms. They have been very cooperative in taking down the pages that are selling illicit vape products. But what has been happening, Mr. Chair, is that as soon as we take down, meron pong mga bago na lumalabas, but we are constantly coordinating with all these platforms. We will soon be releasing some vape products because usually, Mr. Chair, if it's below a certain number na pinapasok po ng mga from the airport, na-excuse or na-exempt po sila from the PS license. So once we release that, bawal na po yung mga importation na ganun. So we will only be limiting to 1 unit per entry ng vape. Also, it's supposed to address yung mga products po that are, well, bought dun sa mga platforms. Usually, single items po yung binibili abroad and then they come in here. So, because of this department admin order, the products should be brought here in bulk, paying the correct excise products. And we are currently working on our regulation on retailer, distributor, and warehouse registration, flavor descriptors, as well as the we will soon be requiring the submission of excise tax payment returns before we issue yung release po ng DTI release po ng products from the customs. So far, that's all, Mr. Chair.
I'll focus on the ones you mentioned, yung formal charges. These are DTI is the regulator of vape products, diba?
Yes, Mr.
Under
Chair.
the law. And these cases that you filed are pertains to vape products that are not registered with DTI.
Meron din pong registered with DTI. Out of the 32 products that we filed formal charges with suspensions, meron po sa kanilang may PS license, but they were caught being sold without tax stamps. So for the DTI, Mr. Chair, it's a packaging violation against the standards of the vape products.
How many of those are mga cases pertains to unregistered vape products? Those are completely not within your list of registered items.
In total, Mr. Chair, since there are 379, Mr. Chair, yung completely unregistered.
379?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
And then how many cases have you filed against this 379?
They are all pending, Mr. Chair. Pending with the adjudication division of the Fair Trade Enforcement Bureau of the DTI. The violations, Mr. Chair, of the vape law 11900.
Is that adjudication board is under DTI?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
But they're unregistered, so ano pang i-adjudicate? That's my point.
Meron po sila, Mr. Chair, yung most common is yung illegal flavor descriptors. So it's for the determination of the penalty on these mix. Yung the one that I mentioned since September, yung fina-file po namin is yung packaging violations. And these are imposed against the combination of the manufacturer, importer, and the brand.
I would assume the corrective action there is they will have to just pay taxes or register their products.
Of course, Mr. Chair, dun po yung they have to
Are they allowed
pay the penalty.
and pay the penalty?
Yes,
But
Mr. Chair.
they're allowed to correct their actions.
We are following, Mr. Chair, yung three-strike rule under the vape law. So, meron po sa kanila mga naka-strike 1 na meron pong currently on their second charge.
Ilan na naka-strike 3?
Wala pa, Mr. Chair.
Wala pa.
Wala pa.
Okay. Just submit to us a report on that.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay. We'll call, I think, Attorney Pobosan is here with us.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And on behalf of the National Tobacco Administration, we are one with the objective of this honorable committee in curbing the illicit trade of tobacco. This illicit trade of tobacco not only deprives the government of the revenue that it writes, and I also confirm that on our part, we also issue negative certifications. So I enjoin all the enforcement agencies that if they needed these certifications, especially during seizures, we have the means or database of the on determining whether these personalities or products involved are licensed or registered before the NTA. So the directive of our administrator and CEO is to expedite the issuance of these clearances, especially if this will help them in the case build-up. That will be all, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you for that effort. We'll call on NEDA, Mr. Director Bien Ganapin. Any comments, Director?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Yeah, just a few comments, Mr. Chair. I think in the last meeting, in the last hearing, we focused our intervention on the economic. Aside from the economic impact, there are other economic costs that are manifested by the presence of market distortions so to speak. No, like for instance, the presence of cheaper and unregulated tobacco products can reduce the sales of legitimate businesses, as mentioned by our colleague here from the Associated Anglo-American Tobacco Corporation earlier. So just to save on time, Mr. Chair. So first is the strengthening of border control, as mentioned by our colleagues here earlier and in previous to strengthen border control. We think is that to continue to pursue the digitalization of operations of our implementing agencies, such as the particularly the Bureau of Customs, and I think the Bureau of Customs already has some initiatives on along this line, Mr. Chair, forms and the electronic monitoring of goods in transit. Also, they have some they have implemented this already, Mr. Chair. And also, Your Honor, in terms of monitoring the supply chain, I think there is also a current program that's being implemented by our customs system, wherein designed to track products and prevent the diversion in other to prevent the diversion of some products. They have implemented this e-track system. I think we can strengthen this along this line. And on also there is also a mention of regulation of e-commerce, which is also we support this initiative because as mentioned by the Honorable Chair in the previous meetings, the rise of online sales of tobacco products is another avenue for illicit trade, and we believe that stronger regulation of these online platforms and the implementation of digital systems for verifying sales, legal sales, can limit the illicit online tobacco trade. We also recognize the importance of intelligence sharing and analysis, Mr. Chair. This will further strengthen regulations against counterfeit products. This is all for now, Mr. Chair, and then we will submit the full updated NEDA inputs to your committee. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Look on FDA. Any comments on the matter? If you have any.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Existing laws and regulations on illicit trade. Currently, the Food and Drug Administration is not involved in any enforcement activities other than assisting the Department of Trade and Industry in the development of their standards and policies for vapor products and heated tobacco products. But as an attached agency of the Department of Health, we submit and we align ourselves with the proposal from the harmful effects of this product, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you. If NRI, Ms. Dasco, any comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The DOST-FNRI supports the objectives of this resolution to curb the illicit trade of tobacco and vape products. This aligns with the Institute's commitment to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal number 3, which seeks to ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all. Specifically, SDG 3 emphasizes strengthening the implementation of the World Health Organization Framework Convention on Tobacco Control, including its provisions on controlling illicit trade. That's tax measures aimed at reducing tobacco consumption. The availability of smuggled products at lower prices enables wider access, particularly among youth, fostering early addiction and increasing long-term health risks. Furthermore, these illicit products often bypass quality controls, posing additional safety concerns due to the presence of unregulated toxins. So we at the DOST-FNRI reaffirms our commitment to supporting these initiatives and to promote public health and well-being, and conducting inquiries such as this is timely and necessary to combat the illicit trade of tobacco and vape products by implementing robust enforcement measures, fostering interagency collaboration, and promoting public awareness. The Philippines can address these challenges and safeguard the health of its citizens. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And we mentioned this during the last hearing, and former Congressman Nograles mentioned it again today, that since FNRI is already collecting data, may we suggest that doing it on the ground through surveys, may we suggest that to differentiate illicit and licit so that we will get accurate information. But nevertheless, we thank FNRI for regular its recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is noted.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll call on Lung Center of the Philippines, Dr. Hubert Benedicto.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, for this invitation. And I'm here also as the president of the Philippine College of Chest Physicians, together with my trustee, Dr. De La Cruz. We really laud the committee's effort in terms of trying to fix the tobacco taxation and, of course, the issue in illicit trade. Anything that can deter smoking and vaping usage, we are readily supportive of it. And we echo, in fact, our previous statement, and then I think it is quite similar with the health justice and the action for economic reform, that an increase on taxation of tobacco and electronic smoking devices is really recommended from our part as doctors, and maybe the stricter implementation of the sin tax law. We have a 1558 house in Lung Center of the Philippines for smoking and vaping cessation measures. However, we really would like to have an increase of the budget for us to run this really nationwide, since we would like to do it being an apex center, and then we are trying to have over the country to have this quote unquote 1558 intervention. You are right in saying that when you told us during the introduction, dapat siguro may masampulan. And I really love that effort because I find it concerning the data that you have shown us as far as negligible numbers in terms of those who are persecuted. But having said that, I love the efforts, of course, of the agencies. Hindi mahirap gawin yung kailangan nilang gawin din, no? But having said that, we as doctors really see a lot of establishment. You just have to ride across all cities and you will sell vaping products as well. So we hope na maskin sila masampulan, na closure and everything, that will really lead to significant impact in terms of health. So I echo the call as well from the other resource person. As I've mentioned, this committee is laudable in terms of its effort, and we will continue to attend any notice of meeting on behalf of Lung Center and the Philippine College of Chest Physicians.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Benedicto. We'll call on DOH. Ms.
Herbosa, implementation is faithful to the spirit and letter of the law, as the deficiencies mentioned earlier may lead to higher health risks as well as lower revenues affecting policy. The presence of illegal cigarettes and vape products in the market possess more significant health risks due to greater population exposure to these products that go against the constitutional right to health. Altogether, they contravene to WHO Framework Convention on Tobacco Control, or FCTC, a treaty concurred in its ratification by the Senate through Resolution number 24, adopted on the 25th of April 2005, to implement tobacco control measures such as price and tax policies. Now, the DOH supports the call for stronger enforcement of existing and established policies to combat illicit trade. And in consideration of the aforementioned, the DOH offers the following recommendations for any other legislative measures that may be introduced on this matter. First, to continue with and strengthen the implementation of excise tax measures already in force. Second, to include violations of RA number 10643 or the Graphic Health Warnings Law in the definition of illicit trade and covered products. And third, to include citizen participation among the proposed strategies for implementation. Citizen participation, any person may file a complaint and or report violations to any member agency of the Anti-Illicit Trade Council with evidentiary support. Pero sususugan ko po ang sinabi ni Mr. Chair kanina, because this call for citizen participation or the suggestion of the agency for citizen participation will be challenged if there will be no convictions from seizures against illicit trade. Kung hindi po natin i-impose ang conviction, hindi pa tataasin ang napaparusahan. Next, from the Health Promotion Bureau, we will continue the social behavior change campaigns and we shall ensure cessation services at all levels of care. So we have here our friends from the Lung Center of the Philippines at kami po ay nakikipagtulungan po sa kanila. Next, I just want to highlight that in 2021, more than 59 Filipinos na po ang namamatay kada oras dahil po sa tobacco-related illnesses. Kabilang po dito ang cancer, tuberculosis, and stroke, different kinds of stroke. Now, with this, patuloy po ang Health Promotion Bureau sa mga educational campaigns po natin para po sa ating mga kababayan so that we prevent more deaths from the tobacco-related illnesses or tobacco-related causes. They look for this to be pushed and we firmly stand with our commitment to strengthen educational campaigns so that the tobacco-related illnesses can be prevented because this can be prevented. Gusto ko lamang po balikan yung suggestion po ni former Congressman Coco Nograles in the harmful effects of illicit and licit tobacco. Tatayo po kami sa DOH na magsasabing wala pong diferensya. The use of licit and illicit tobacco and vapor products affects health. According to the World Health Organization, all forms of tobacco use are harmful and there is no safe level of exposure to tobacco. Ito man po ay legal o illegal, ito po ay masama sa kalusugan. Tatapusin ko na lamang po ang aming statement with this powerful thought. We always cry that we want a bagong Pilipinas, but in the agency, we say, walang bagong Pilipinas na amoy sigarilyo. At wala pong bagong Pilipinas na mataas ang nagkakasakit dahil sa vape at tobacco. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Marasigan. I have a question. Do you have any, does DOH have any study on the impact of illicit trade versus our health outcomes? Have you already started? Because I remember during the first hearing, we were asking the deed already creating impact, negative impact to our health outcomes. We are focused on cigarettes. No? And I agree with you completely that cigarettes, whether licit or illicit, contributes negatively to our constituents' healthy health status. However, the illicit trade is still growing at a very fast pace right now. So I want to understand, how is it already impacting our health outcomes as a country?
Mr. Chair, to answer your question, yes, we do have the study and the results of that study will be coming out this year. So we have already prepared and invested for that study so that we'll be able to give specific data so that our decisions here will be data-driven, and science will also be our background. Now, for the illicit trade, to your question po na ano po ang direktang epekto po nito, this actually, the study also shows that we are expanding the access of Filipino people to tobacco products because of this illicit trade. Mas madali po nilang na-access, mas madali sa kanilang makabili because these are easily available in the market. Ito po yung iba't ibang mga produkto na nakikita din natin sa Pilipinas dahil mabilis po itong nakakapasok. And when it comes to vaping, the behavior of vaping and use of conventional tobacco, so we also see the increase na pababa po ng pababa or pabata ng pabata ang gumagamit po ng tobacco, and the entry point is really e-cigarettes and vaping, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for that. When we were discussing the sin tax law, it has twin objectives: revenue and health outcomes. We cannot disentangle this twin objective. It was very clear from the beginning. But what's happening right now, and I think this was also partly discussed during the sin tax law, was the potential rise of illicit trade. No? So, and with that rise in illicit trade, it will negate those twin outcomes, which is revenue and health outcomes. No? Illicit trade negates these two directions or two objectives, because obviously government cannot collect from illicit trade, and number two, like you said, constituents will shift to illicit cigarettes because of the cost implication, and it's much cheaper. So from a broader standpoint, I suggest to the DOH and to the DOF to already look at this on a broader scale, because it cannot be looked at purely from a tax point of view. It has to be looked at in every angle of government. For example, in this discussion, we're looking at enforcement and conviction. That lens should be looked at already, because tapos na conviction lens. We should look at the PCG, part of the equation, because ito gasgas na ito, pataulitin ko rin, it has to be whole of government approach, no, in this fight. Because if we look at just on a taxation point of view, to the DOF and to the DOH to get together, kasi twin objectives to no, when we were discussing the sin tax law, and to look at the capacities, the challenges of the different agencies of government, so that we can eliminate at best or mitigate, no, mitigate the flooding of illicit cigarettes to our country, or at least minimize the influx of to address this already. But I'm sounding the alarm bells because we're already erasing the gains of
government laws inside our economic zones. Of the 4,320 plus registered business enterprises with PEZA, Your Honor, we have 11 companies registered doing manufacturing of cigarettes and tobacco products. 8 of which are still operating, but the 3 are closed operations already or suspended. We are implementing effective measures in order to protect the interest of government in terms of customs duties and taxes, and promotion and protection of the national health or the health of our citizenry. Registered business enterprises, and it is expressly stated in that registration agreement that these companies must comply strictly with all the regulatory requirements of relevant agencies, which is related to their activity. For example, in terms of tobacco products, sir, they are registered activity. We also have, we require that economic zones be enclosed with perimeter fences so that effective controls can efficiently be established and curtail smuggling activities. The demands and approvals for movement of goods in and out of the economic zones. We also have established our presence in all the economic zones nationwide, Mr. Chair, and there are sufficient personnel to monitor the operations of this economic zone, which is that We also have undertaken digital transformation in our called the EIPS, or the Electronic Import Permit System. This is an online system used for the application and approval of improved electronically also. Another is the Automated Export Documentation System, or the AEDS. This system
of
Your Honor.
cartons. So how many are actual cigarette manufacturers?
Production of reconstituted tobacco, cigarettes,
Yung talagang manufacturing of cigarettes, how many
manufacture of cigarettes, sir. Here is 1, 2, dalawa lang, sir.
2.
And then for reconstituted tobacco, we have 1. Tobacco products, we have 1. Manufacturing and processing of tobacco, cigarette assembly, there's 1 also.
And these are all for export.
Yes, sir.
Nothing
For the domestic market.
for the domestic market.
Yes, sir. So far
Okay.
not, sir. But in the event that there will be domestic sale, again, we strictly comply with all the requirements like payment of custom duties and taxes and the permitting requirements in collaboration with the Bureau of Customs and BIR also.
Because in the past, I think this is the diverting its cigarettes. It was supposed to be export, but obviously it was being sold locally. So what is PEZA doing in order to stop, in order to assure that there will be no diversion of cigarettes? What is PEZA's proactive measure to avoid diversion? Because obviously what they will do is they will declare that they will be sending it to their ports, but it is diverted to the local market. Is there any diversion?
Mr. Chair, in the case of GBBEM, it has been closed since 2021 following investigation conducted on its operations and complaints that it has not registered. It's registered until now. And as I mentioned earlier, Mr. Chair, we have implemented effective measures in order that all of these operations of companies, not only for those engaged in tobacco, to be strictly monitored. All these systems are in place. And
Despite those na GBBEM managed to divert.
sir, the report that we got with GBBEM is that it just failed to register its product, its project with the BIR, not with the diversion of its products.
I think those products were present in the market. So I think the BIR the BIR's case against them was unregistered.
Coordinate with the BIR and Bureau of Customs during these investigations.
Okay, just make sure, PEZA, because you still have 2 actual cigarette manufacturers, correct?
Yes, sir.
Just make sure that these cigarette manufacturers are monitored and they follow the proper procedures and use the technologies that you mentioned, because PEZA being an IPA, we don't want the economic zones to be a hub for smuggled and illicit cigarettes, because that's in our shores. Iba yung ginagawa ng PCG na intercepting illegal cigarettes coming from the south, but diversion is illicit cigarette, of course, the economic zone jurisdiction. No? So the point, but it's important those are being followed and implemented. And if not, then shut them down. Ang importante. Because parang pinupukpok natin sarili natin ng bato eh. No? It's in our shores na divert lang. No?
F is in the process of reviewing our accessories or all aspects of illicit trade of tobacco products from detection to prosecution. We will inform the committee of the items under the protocol that need to be legislated. We have identified the agencies that need to do specific tasks. The DOF is currently reviewing and finalizing our position to the accession to the said protocol.
There's another law that can curb illicit trade in our country. and also improve prosecution. And that's the anti-agri-economic sabotage law.
Yes,
It was mentioned by Congressman Nograles. And this law is now in effect. Unfortunately, the council has not yet been convened. I was actually asking my staff who's the agency that is tasked to convene this. It's not so clear in the law, but may I request the DOF for some updates on convening the council? Because without convening the council, then the law is inoperable.
Sir, under the Anti-Agricultural Economic Sabotage Act, the Office of the President is tasked to convene the
Council.
council. Sir.
Correct,
However, however, the Office of the President delegated the same to the OSOPEA, sir, Office of Special
Delegated to whom?
to the OSOPEA, sir, Office of Special Economic Investment.
Okay. Do we have that? Do we have OSOPEA today? We don't have that.
Sir, to my knowledge, they have conducted council meetings, sir, and they are in the process of drafting rules of engagement covering the matter, sir.
All right. Since DOF is a member, can you take the cudgels and send us an update on this council? Because this is in relation to improving in short. So once the council has been convened, then we can start prosecuting 10 million pesos. Been convened, based on our latest information. But if the DOF saying that it has already been convened by the Office of the Special are the cases that they're looking at, and what are the cases that they will conviction from the body from the body. Hearing none, we compile. Let me just flash on the screen, and please take note, no procedures, and plug the gaps, especially to those to the enforcement agencies. So the recommendation of the committee based on our discussion today focused on prosecution and conviction. Number one, to conduct capacity building mechanisms and specialized rules in raids and seizures so as to avoid dismissal of cases due to technicalities. And this goes to the BOC, BIR, and the DOJ. Number two, impose administrative penalties to officials found to be negligent in implementing technical rules. Number three, and officials found to be negligent in implementing technical rules. Enhance mechanisms for preservation and collection of evidence and witness preparation. Again, to the BOC, BIR, and the DOJ. Number four,
sir, the council meeting was held March 5, 2025. Sir.
Okay, good. At least our information is obsolete already. So that's good that they have already convened that. Number five, close coordination between the DOJ and BOC and BIR for the proper conduct of planned surveillance and entrapment operations. And number six, amendment of Section 263 of the Tax Code to remove distinction on penalties for locally manufactured articles vis-a-vis imported articles. So we will send the respective agencies these recommendations so that your respective management team can already implement, study and possibly implement our recommendations. And we would also request some updates on the implementation. So with that, we have some data requests, but we will just send this via email to the different government agencies. So with that, if there are no more comments on this issue, so we would like again to reiterate our recommendation to the BOC, BIR, and DOJ to work closely together. Dito kasi sa atin uso working in silos kaya walang natatapos eh. But honestly, and sad to say that we're losing the fight against illicit trade. In tobacco because we're not prosecuting and we're not convicting enough. No, less than 1% of all seizures are actually convicted. So, and that's not a positive news for us who are fighting illicit trade. And because of that, walang natatakot. No? Tuloy-tuloy ang ligaya. no, and it's now affecting health outcomes possibly, no. So again, we reiterate our call to the DOJ and to the BOC and the BIR to work together and to improve enforcement and therefore improving conviction rates. All right. So with that, thank you very much for your time. Maraming salamat po for contributing your knowledge and your and giving us your suggestions. We'll suspend this hearing for now, pending the submissions of data and information from the different agencies. So maraming salamat po. This hearing is hereby suspended.